Today I'm deeply honored to reintroduce H.R. 40, historic legislation to establish a federal commission to examine the lasting legacy of slavery, to develop reparations proposals for descendants of enslaved Africans. It is an honor to inherit the privilege of carrying this bill forward. Amen. From Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. We're at a critical inflection point in America, and the moment could not be more urgent. With Black history under attack and white supremacy emboldened, there is no better time to introduce this bill than during Black History Month. More than 4 centuries ago, Africans were kidnapped, trafficked, and enslaved, forced to build this country under horrific brutality. An economy which we still benefit from today. Rice, sugar, tobacco, cotton. And even after the Civil War, emancipation, and the 13th Amendment, the legacy of slavery endured in other forms, codified in law to deny Black Americans freedom, opportunity, and dignity.
Hey guys, my name is Madi and you are welcome to Madi Speaks. Honestly, it is so funny that even in 2025, some Black people are still calling for reparations. They are still demanding for innocent white people, including immigrants who came from all parts of the world, who never participated in slavery. In fact, some of them were even slaves themselves, but they are being required to pay Black people, even though these Black people were never slaves in their lives. The whole thing is just insane, but it is exactly what we witnessed just a few days ago when this Democratic House representative, Ayana Presley from Boston, Massachusetts, together with the members of the Congressional Black Caucus, came forward to reintroduce the H.R. 40 Reparation Bill. How ridiculous, okay? These people are no longer thinking straight. I'm guessing that the dissolution of DEI and the review of government expenditure being carried out by DOGE have somehow sent them over the edge, and that's why we see them running helter-skelter, looking for one ridiculous thing or another meaningless thing to latch onto. Now, the H.R. 40 Reparation Bill was first introduced by John Conyers. That was back in 1989. That is exactly 36 years from now, okay? John Conyers embarked on a futile journey of bringing up this bill in Congress every single year, starting from 1989 until he died. And I called it a futile journey because it is futile, okay? And I will tell you why during the course of this video. Now, another representative by the name of Sheila Johnson Lee took up the mantle. She reintroduced this futile bill and kept on doing that every year until she also left us in 2024. Currently, Representative Ayana Presley have taken up the mantle this time because she just reintroduced this bill in Congress. We know this bill is gonna wither and perish just like it did 36 years ago. I mean, how can you possibly request compensation from something you didn't even experience? Not even your parents did. Your grandparents did not even witness this. And on top of that, you want innocent people to pay you huge sums. Innocent people whose grandparents, parents, children are totally clueless as to what went down during that time in history. You were never a slave, okay? These people were never slave owners, but somehow you still want money to change hands. You want them to compensate you for experiencing trauma over something you never really went through. Now, that to me is the definition of futility, because it is never gonna happen, okay? We're quickly gonna listen to these folks, starting from this Congresswoman, Bonnie Watson. Then finally, we're gonna listen to Rep. Ayana Presley amaze us with her brilliant speech. Let's go.
You know, from school boards to the White House, Trump and his lackeys are on a mission to erase the contributions of Black Americans.
Now, how is Trump and his lackeys doing that? Okay, she's never gonna tell us, but let's continue.
Including the unpaid Black labor upon which our country was built. We won't allow this history to be erased, because when Black history is erased, when the value of the contributions of Black Americans is dismissed, it's that much easier to dismiss the value of Black lives. Black excellence scares Donald Trump, it scares Stephen Miller, and it scares Elon Musk. Because you know what? Deep down, they recognize their own mediocrity.
Black excellence scares Donald Trump, a man who is one of the most successful individuals on the planet. I remember when ex-President Barack Obama mentioned that the American dream is to be as successful as Donald Trump. But mind you, Donald Trump is scared of Black excellence, because when he sees it, he then realizes that he is mediocre and a failure in comparison. Black excellence also scares Elon Musk, a man who can even be considered a genius, who has made notable accomplishments, starting with SpaceX, a company that has made numerous breakthroughs, even more than NASA can ever boast of. He owns Boring Company, Neuralink, OpenAI, Zip2, X, PayPal, Tesla, Hyperloop, Solar City, electric vehicles, Starlink. My lips hurt. I can't even mention them all. But to top it off, he still has time to oversee Doge. At the end of the day, though, these people said he's scared of black excellence because deep down, just when he looks deep enough, he will still realize that he's mediocre and less than in comparison to black excellence. And you're telling me these people are mentally healthy? Are these people not crazy? And to see that there are people who actually dote on every word these clowns say, people who listen to them and support their narrative, just makes me confirm that indeed we are living in a clown world.
And so they're doing everything they can to entrench the racial wealth gap. They refuse to recognize that when Black America succeeds, we all succeed. When those on the bottom of the rungs of the economic ladder can climb, then the entire nation rises with them. So I'm grateful to my little sister, Ayana, for picking up this legislation from the late, great Sheila Jackson Lee.
And to conclude, she's saying that black people can only succeed when they are being handed out $350,000 each from the pockets of innocent people.
Happy Black History Month. Happy Black Futures Month, in an era, of course, where Black history is attempted to be erased, to obstructed or whitewashed. The America we know today was built on the brutal enslavement and trafficking of stolen Africans forced to build this country on their literal backs.
Yes, black people contributed, and I want to emphasize on the word contributed, okay? Yes, they contributed to the growth of the United States of America, but were they actually stolen from Africa? Not really. I know people from other races are gonna be scared to speak this freely, so that's why you're hearing it from me, another black person. The Africans who were enslaved in America were captured and sold by fellow Africans in Africa. The white man only purchased them from other Africans and brought them over to the United States. So, stolen, wrong, but purchased, correct.
Despite, however, what Trump and his anti-diversity, anti-equity, anti-inclusion cronies want you to believe, this is American history. Its impact is the American status quo. It's unjust and it is wrong.
These people claim to want diversity, but what they don't seem to understand is that DEI is actually anti-DEI, okay? Because when you claim you want to include everyone, then you go ahead and you select certain individuals because they match a certain criteria, maybe because they have a certain skin color or a certain gender or a certain ethnicity. That is actively discriminating against those who don't match these criteria, and that is wrong. But anyway,
no matter what anybody says, the history of America is the history of America. Right. And acknowledging that history is not a threat to the present. Would argue that ignoring that history, however, is a threat to our future. No matter how many attempts they make to whitewash this history, the blood of our enslaved Africans ancestors can't be erased from this land. We must acknowledge that.
So she's saying, just give us money and we'll forget that slavery ever happened.
I can think of no better time to bring forward this legislation than now. A time when we are seeing the erosion of our fundamental rights and freedoms.
The fundamental rights and freedom of black people are being taken away? Really? How, if I may ask?
In just the past few years, we have seen the conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court roll back decades of precedent in race-conscious college admissions.
Race-conscious college admissions. There is no truth clearer than that. They just admitted that DEI admissions are not merit-conscious, they are not academic qualification conscious, but rather it is just race-conscious. If you're lucky to have a certain skin color, then you just hit the jackpot. They've admitted it themselves. It is just about unmerited favoritism and discrimination against those who don't share this particular skin color.
We have seen a persistent and coordinated assault on our right to vote and efforts to dismantle the Voting Rights Act of 1965, one of the most effective pieces of civil rights legislation ever enacted in the United States.
Lies, 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 and all lies. These people will just say the damnedest things just to achieve what they want. There is no single black person in America today that cannot vote unless you are suffering from some serious mental problems. Please stop manufacturing lies out of thin air.
We have seen efforts to distort our nation's history and erase Black history in our schools. We have seen efforts to strip away the tools of economic opportunity that allow people to get ahead and build generational wealth.
The thing is that these people are not smart, okay? I'm not expecting them to be extremely intelligent, but they don't have the basic level of smartness that most individuals have. Because how can you claim that DEI is not a tool used to discriminate against white people, yet you turn around and cry that ending DEI is an attack on Black people? I mean, make it make sense. Oh, DEI is just for everybody. It means diversity for everybody, equity for everybody, and inclusion for everybody. And then DEI gets abolished. Immediately, they start crying. This is an attack on Black people. If DEI is for everybody, then why do you claim that eradicating it only affects Black people negatively? Maybe because Black people are the only ones benefiting heavily from it, and at the expense of every other person, especially white people. You guys are just exposing your greediness. And to think that they all gathered there out of more greed is just disgusting. There were more empty, meaningless speeches from the other members, but I'm not gonna play those here. Let's just jump over to the person who reintroduced this bill, Rep. Ayana Presley.
All right, good afternoon, and thank you everyone for braving the inclement weather as we gather to take an essential step forward in the long and ongoing fight for justice, accountability, and healing for Black America. Today, I'm deeply honored to reintroduce H.R. 40, historic legislation to establish a federal commission to examine the lasting legacy of slavery, to develop reparations proposals for descendants of enslaved Africans. It is an honor to inherit the privilege of carrying this bill forward. Amen. From Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. We're at a critical inflection point in America, and the moment cannot be more urgent. With Black history under attack and white supremacy emboldened, there is no better time to introduce this bill than during Black History Month, a time when we reflect on our history, our struggle, and our collective power. And I'll say, it is also not only about Black history, but it is about Black futures. More than 4 centuries ago, Africans were kidnapped, trafficked, and enslaved, forced to build this country under horrific brutality, an economy which we still benefit from today. Rice, sugar, tobacco, cotton. And even after the Civil War, emancipation, and the 13th Amendment, the legacy of slavery endured in other forms, codified in law to deny Black Americans freedom, opportunity, and dignity. And that's what brings us here today. This brutality, these injustices, these horrors were not things just happened within the culture by osmosis. They were legislated.
And that is what brings us here today. Pay us for what our forefathers went through. Not for what we experienced, but for what others who look like us went through centuries ago. I told you this reparations journey was doomed to fail. But let's continue.
Today, our government has a moral and legal obligation to right those wrongs, and reparations are a necessary step towards achieving justice. Now, here's what the bill would do. H.R. 40 creates a federal commission, an expert body charged with investigating the enduring impacts of slavery and its aftermath, and developing concrete proposals for reparations. This is a pragmatic policy that is fundamentally about repairing harm and building a more just America. Donald Trump and his co-president Elon Musk and their enablers in Congress and the courts are working overtime to strip away our rights, from gutting affirmative action, dismantling voting rights, to attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that benefit Black folks and everyone who calls this country home. I think it's really important in these times that we call a thing a thing. We're in a moment of anti-Blackness on steroids, and we refuse to be silent. We will not back down in our pursuit of racial justice.
I have never heard anyone contradict themselves more than this woman. Can you be freaking consistent? You are just contradicting your every word, okay? You have to stick to one story, ma'am. Is ending DEI a form of anti-Blackness or anti-American? Choose one and stop grifting and pretending to care for non-Black people. Well, I'm sorry for making you believe that there was anything of value this woman mentioned in her monologue. There wasn't, okay? You waited for nothing, and I'm sorry I wasted your time. Nobody is gonna be able to convince any reasonable person or people that a group of innocent individuals, many of whom immigrated into the country long after slavery was ended, many of whom were once enslaved themselves, many of whose forefathers were alive during slavery but never owned slaves, okay? Some of whose fathers owned slaves, but their great-grandparents, their grandparents, and their parents and themselves had no slaves, had nothing to do with slavery. Nobody is going to be able to convince anyone with a brain that these people, simply because of the skin color they share, should pay huge amounts of money to a group of people who never witnessed slavery. Their parents never did, their grandparents never did, but somehow they should be given huge sums of dollar bills to make up for their losses, their phantom experiences with slavery. This is never gonna happen. The world is too far gone, okay? We are too intertwined and too mixed up than ever before. Many of us are biracial now. Many of us, are intermarried. We see black and white marriages everywhere now. So I don't know who's gonna pay who. If we were talking about reparations when the culprit and the victims were living and breathing, that would have made so much sense. But in this day and age, that is impossible. Like I said before, this is a very futile argument or project, okay? And it will be very sad to watch Congresswoman Ayana Presley waste the remainder of her years chasing the clouds. Anyway, guys, these are my thoughts, these are my opinions, but feel free to share yours in the comment section below, but do so respectfully. Also, if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, honestly, I don't know what you're waiting for. Subscribe to the channel, like and share this video to keep people informed, and consider joining my membership or buying me a coffee if you like, as a way of supporting the channel. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to catch you on the next one. For now, peace.